Happy Finals Week, Hawk Nation. Welcome to episode 4 of the HNU HawkCast. Jake Ward with you here to take you through some basketball action as we began conference play last week with two matchups against Azusa Pacific. Biola will, of course, have our weekly Coach's Corner segment with men's basketball head coach Omar Sachez, and we will talk to Omar about how to balance life both on the court and off the court around the holidays. But let's start, as normal, by diving into some women's basketball. The Hawks were down in Southern California to take on the Cougars of Azusa Pacific, and while the Hawks were only down by 6 at the half, they ultimately dropped the contest by a final score of 94-62. There were a couple of game highs, though, for the Hawks, as Angelise Carly-Hilliard topped all scorers with 17 points, while Jalea Williams, in her first start of the season, grabbed a game-high 13 boards. Ariana Hernandez chipped in a double-digit points with 14, as she was 3 of 9 from beyond the arc, while Taylor Krause also added 3 three-pointers. The Hawks then turned the page to the Biola Eagles on Saturday, but unfortunately they could not get back into the win column as they got off to a slow start in the first quarter that they could not recover from and fell by a final score of 82-53. Biola's win moves them to 2-0 in the PacWest, while the Hawks start 0-2 in conference play in the 2018-19 season. Ariana Hernandez did lead all scorers with 19 points, including 5 for 11 from beyond the arc, as she now leads the PacWest with 25 three-pointers made on the season. She sits at a total of 25 for 73, which brings her to 34.2%. The 5 three-pointers against Biola is also a season high for Hernandez, which she's matched twice now, as she also had 5 three-pointers against Seattle Pacific earlier this year. Between the two games in Southern California, Hernandez went 8 for 20 from beyond the arc, which leaves her at 40%. With her 2 double-digit point performances and a 17-point performance from Angelise Carly-Hilliard, both Angelise and Ariana Hernandez are in the top 10 in scoring in the PacWest Conference so far through the 2018-2019 season. After 4 assists against Azusa Pacific, Taylor Krause added another 3 against Biola, which brings her career assist total up to 200 as she becomes the 11th women's basketball player in HNU school history to have 200 career assists. Turning the focus to HNU men's basketball, against Azusa Pacific, they dropped the contest by a final of 65-46, and the Hawks were led by Jules Sanders, who had 15 points to lead all scorers, including 4 for 7 from beyond the three-point line. The Hawks then took on Biola on Saturday and came back with another loss as they dropped this contest by a final of 61-50. Xavier Harris in just 15 minutes led the Hawks with 11 points, on the strength of 5 for 7 field goals from the floor, while Andre Green chipped in double digits on 4 for 11 shooting, and Alonzo Taylor had 10 of his own on 5 for 14. We'll dive more into these games when we come back from the break with HNU men's basketball head coach Omar Sachez, so stick right with us on the HNU HawkCast.
Yeah. Way better.
Welcome to the HawkCast, presented by HNU Athletics.
And we're back. We're with head coach of the men's basketball team here at HNU, Omar Sachez. And coach, you guys just got back from playing your first 2 conference games down in Southern California this weekend. Unfortunately, a pair of losses against Azusa Pacific and Biola. But let's start with Azusa Pacific. You had a game-high 15 points from Jules Sanders, 4 for 7 from beyond the three-point line. Overall shot 50%. What would you say about his performance that night?
Well, that's the upside that Jules has, is that he's capable of doing that consistently. Whether he can or not really is going to be on him. I mean, he has to be consistent in the right ways. And Jules is such a high-energy kid, man, that I keep trying to get the kid to play very even-keeled because, you know, the game of basketball, you can't play very high, you can't play very low, you have to kind of stay in the middle. And that's the hard part for some of these kids, is learning how to stay in the middle a little bit.
Now, you guys got off to a better start this game against Azusa, shooting 37.9% from the floor. However, you guys didn't finish as strong, a little bit reverse from the way that it's been this year. So how do you get them to really focus kind of throughout the game and make sure they put it together for a full game?
Well, Azusa was kind of interesting because we really did a good job to jump on them, and I felt like we matched up well against them. But, to Leslie's credit, they really battled and got back in the game. We kind of got stagnant a little bit, and they kept stopping the game and getting to the free throw line. They got to the free throw line 9 points in a row and really got back into that game. And we just didn't do a good job of staying together and responding to that adversity. Again, just like that whole concept with Jules of learning how to stay even keel, is the same thing with our group. Is we can't get happy for doing the things that are inevitable in the way we play. And when we get too happy, we don't focus on what matters, and we lost focus and started reaching and doing some very undisciplinary things, and reaching and not button up on the post play. And so they got to the free throw line and checked back in it. So the second half, we just could not score. I mean, simply put, we could not score. And going back to the statistic of we have 143 spot up shots, and we're scoring it at a 0.6. I mean, you want to have spot up shots in the game of basketball, and we're getting quite a few of them, and we're just not sticking those. And so that really hurt us in the second half against APU, and they pulled apart, and we really couldn't get back into the game there because we kept digging ourselves a deeper hole.
Now, you guys did play well defensively on this trip. You held both the opponents to points in the 60s, whereas the average that you guys had allowed coming into these two games was in the 70s. So what was really working for you guys on the defensive side of the ball?
That's the thing, I talk a lot about, I'm a defensive coach, and for me it starts on the defensive side of the ball. The issue is that dealing with the adverse situations that we get is, fatigue tends to make a fool out of us a little bit, and we'll get tired and make funny mistakes. And like I told our group against APU after the game against APU, we all think that one or two mistakes are fine, but if we all have that mindset, then we're playing 12 guys. That's 24 mistakes, and in the game of basketball, that's too many. And so we have to learn to strive for perfection, though we won't get there, and it can't be acceptable that we're bailing people out and putting them at the free throw line. And that's what we did against APU, is just weren't disciplined in our defensive sets. Though, I say 80% of that, we were pretty solid defensively, but they killed us on the O boards. We gave up 10 O boards in the second half, which is very uncharacteristic of us. And we just put them at the free throw line and at the wrong times. And so, like I said, those compounding issues really hurt us. But to their credit, I'll tell you what, we get after, we compete. I praise my guys because they get after it, but they have to understand that there is no shortcuts. There is no times off on the court. You have to be able to compete if you're on that court and can't make mistakes.
And you guys did lead by 11 at one point in the first half, just about midway through. Now, how do you really keep your foot on the throttle and kind of keep that lead up? Because APU got right back into it not too long after that. So how do you guys stay on the gas and really try to put it away?
Like I mentioned in my last time out, I knew they would zone us because we're 0.4 points per possession in zone. And so we prepared for zone against APU because they tend to do a 1-3-1 or a 2-3 extended. And, we really did a great job offensively to be patient in our zone offense. And we jumped on them 6-0. And that's how you get zones. How you get people to zone you, to stop zoning you, is hit open shots. And so I think it discouraged them, and they never went back to it again. And so to our guys' credit, they really were patient in that zone offense and were able to get some good shots out of it. So.
Now, with Biola, it was a little bit like the first few games of the season. You got off to a little bit rougher of a start, but one bright spot in the game, Xavier Harris, in only 15 minutes, was 5 of 7 shooting from the floor, finished with a team-high 11 points. What would you say about his performance that night?
We've been trying to get Xavier to understand that he needs to be a beast down low. he has the potential to be one of the best bigs in our conference. But that requires you to have a certain mindset day in, day out, which we're trying to help him with. Xavier, didn't really show up against APU, and then we challenged him, and he came out and really came out with the mindset to really dominate. And so I think the key with Xavier too is just to limit his minutes, and the minutes he is in there to really pound it inside and get some good action. But Xavier has a potential. He's 6'9", 248 pounds. I mean, that's a lot of weight to have to push around. And so for us to be able to feed him inside and get some good action inside out, or let him just score down there, I just don't think he understands the potential he has fully yet.
Now, with the way that basketball has kind of been moving, both in the NBA and even kind of the college game a little bit these past few years, a lot of perimeter, a lot of spaced out, a lot of shooting, how valuable can Xavier be, to this team? How valuable of a piece, and what kind of contribution can he make?
Well, like I said, if he can gain the attention of people inside, it takes pressure off our perimeter, really. And if we don't have an inside presence, then the focal point becomes our perimeter, and they're going to let those bigs beat us. And so I think by establishing ourselves as having a big man, and again, Zach Young plays a different role as far as being a big man. He's a glue guy for us, and he can play with any group. Bobby Kazar does a good job of playing the post as well, but Xavier can be very dominant if he chooses to be, and right now we're just trying to gear him to do that. His injury from last year, he's still trying to mentally overcome that, and I think we're giving him to the end of the semester to kind of have the time to work with him a little bit more, so that he can be that dominant big we need him to be, because it really will alleviate a lot of the issues we have on the perimeter.
So now that we've gone through conference play a couple games, and I know you're a big numbers guy, a lot of points per possession, what do your numbers tell you from these first two games against Azusa and Biola?
Well, what they tell me is if we can be solid defensively, I don't care how much we score, we can still win. We've defended well enough to win, and right now we're holding teams to, I think, a little under 0.8 points per possession, which is really good. It's just for us, I think it's the offensive side of the ball. I'm not sure why we're struggling so much on spot-up shots, because like I said, you want to be able to get those in games, and for us, we're just not sticking them. It's our leading category, and we have 143 possessions of that, and like I said, we're a little bit over 0.6 points per possession, which is not going to cut it for us. But we need to continue to work on it and get better and emphasize that in practice, so that our guys understand that we need to be able to be consistent there. But I also attribute a lot of this to, we were limited that week at Thanksgiving with the fires, and only 60 minutes of practice, nothing else. Guys couldn't get in the gym, and when you disrupt that level of continuity with guys that are used to being in the gym and getting in and putting up their shots, it's taking some time to catch up a little bit for them. But there can't be excuses when you step on the court why you don't hit open shots. And so this week will be a good week for us. I know we're in finals, but we'll have an opportunity to get in and fix some things before our game on Sunday.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Coach. Now stick around with us on the HNU HawkCast after the break. We'll be talking with Coach Sanchez and how he kind of manages his time with his team and, of course, his family off the court during the Thanksgiving and Christmas break. So stick around, and we'll be right back with head coach Omar Sachez. We're back on the HNU HawkCast. We're here with men's basketball head coach Omar Sachez, and we're talking to him about how to have a little balance between on-the-court duties and off-the-court fun. So, Coach, I want to talk to you because you, of course, took part in the NDNU Thanksgiving Classic last week over the Thanksgiving weekend. You guys are going to have a lot of road trips and a lot of road games throughout this month of December. So one thing I wanted to ask you about is how you as a team, and maybe even you specifically or some of the players, how you guys balance the roles of being a player and getting practice time in, but also having some time off the court to get away from the game a little bit.
It's tough to get away from the game. I mean, that's just from a coaching standpoint, that's what we live for, is being a coach. And obviously for me, being married and having two beautiful daughters, it definitely takes a lot of communication, takes a lot of moving parts there with our kids being so active to balance that. And so, yeah, family life is vital, and making sure that you have a happy home and that your kids aren't missing out on their dad being home. And that's tough sometimes. And, especially thanks to technology nowadays, you can at least see them with FaceTiming them and touching up with them. As for the players, I mean, Thanksgiving is tough because, we play the day after Thanksgiving. And so this year, the first time I've ever given them Thanksgiving off. And we usually practice in the morning, let them go to a player's home, or we'll host them at my place, and then come back the next day. But Christmas break for us, once finals are done here, I mean, us in women's basketball are the only ones here. And so how do you balance that? I recall us being a player, I mean, it just, you got a weight room, you got a gym, you got a bed to sleep in, and you got food. And so you got the bare essentials of what you need to get better. And so during that time, we like to, there aren't many care restrictions during that time. And so that's the time to sit down with guys and touch, see how they're doing personally, see how their personal life is going, catch up on some film. You have enough video to kind of sit there and kind of dissect some of the things you've been trying to get them to change. And so throw that with practice and doing some skills and weight sessions. They actually get really busy during that time. But we do encourage them to disconnect a little bit, and I think that's important. We talk a lot about relationships in life, and so those relationships aren't going to be developed by sitting in your room. And so, with our upperclassmen, getting them to think about what they need to do with finding a job or what the next step is for them, because in a blink of an eye they're going to graduate, and we want to make sure they're set up to at least have a path to what's next. And so we just do a lot of reflecting during that time, a lot of trying to figure out how to continue to build our team and stay together. So we really balance it as much as we can, but we have a lot of guys that are gym rats, and they want to be in the gym every day and put up shots, and so we appreciate that. But like I said, our job is to create that balance for them as well. And so sometimes telling them maybe go see a movie, or go bowling with the group, or do something, but we try to encourage them as much as possible.
Yeah, kind of recharge their batteries a little bit. Now, the NCAA also has their mandatory NCAA break just over Christmas. I believe this year is from the 21st to the 26th. Now, how do you think that sort of helps them kind of recharge?
Well, yeah, we try to be strategic about that, and before they go home, talk to them about a couple of things, plant some seeds about thinking about what they're going to do coming back. If we got guys like Andre Green and Kevonte Davis and certain guys that are playing big minutes right now, hey, we tell them, hey, it's probably better for you to stay off your feet and let your body heal itself, and maybe consider doing some stretching or some recovery pieces there for them to kind of come back. And they won't be at 100, but at least they'll instead of being 60, maybe get back up to 80%. So we try to get them to understand what their goal is when they go home, and again, just suggest certain things for them that we feel might be beneficial for them, which in essence is beneficial for the team. And so, but they'll be busy doing that. And then of course for us as coaches, I like to give my staff some time off, but for me, I'm usually in a lot of basketball gyms watching a lot of high school basketball or junior college basketball, and trying to figure out how to balance that between that and being home for the holidays. So
now you guys are going to be on the road, like I mentioned, a lot. You have a trip to Hawaii, you have another trip to Southern California again in December. Do you guys have anything fun planned for the team to do while you guys are out on your road trips? Anything like a team bonding activity that you guys are looking forward to around this time of year?
Well, Hawaii's tricky for us. I've had a different perspective of that now, because it's a business trip. At the end of the day, the university's paying a lot of money for us to go there, and we want to make sure we stay focused and understand what the goal is at hand. And for us, it's been tough the last 2-3 years because we don't have school while we're there. And usually when you have school, you can at least fill it with study hall and make sure we'll have set up proctored exams out there with teachers, and they're far out there, and so when there isn't any of that, a lot of our kids are not going to be able to just get up on a plane and go to Hawaii. And so we try to balance it and give them some time off and maybe let them go hang out at the beach. But as far as anything scheduled, we're trying to figure out if we can do a luau this year.
Yeah.
Or do something where we can just come together and have an experience together and share that moment. But it's always tough because this year we play all 3 Hawaii schools, so we're there and there's some time in between, and so just trying to balance it, but on both islands, both in Hilo and Waikiki.
Yeah. Now, through your time, either as a player or as a coach, is there maybe like a holiday memory that sticks out to you, playing on or around Thanksgiving, and the same with Christmas? Is there anything that kind of jumps out to you as being a memorable event that has happened for you?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, growing up, the way I grew up, I have a different perspective of the holidays. But for me, as an older adult, I feel like I have a different perspective on the holidays. It's an opportunity to reflect on the blessings we have in our life and how unfortunate certain people in life are. And so for me, if I can stretch myself thin and be able to help in any capacity, whether it be a homeless shelter or donate my time, it's an opportunity to kind of give back. It's great that you spend it with family. It's great to understand. But for me, the meaning of the holidays, in particular Christmas, is definitely a deeper appreciation for having a family that is healthy and we don't have issues at home. Everyone's healthy. And so if we can give back in some capacity and also get our kids to understand how good they have it and that others don't, and just providing that perspective is important. And same thing with our players. If we can in some way try to get them to do some community service during that time, I think it's beneficial, because I know sometimes people think that they have to give money, but time is just as valuable sometimes for people, and so we definitely have that time over the break.
Awesome. Well, Coach, thanks for sitting down with me this week. Stick around, Hawk Nation, as we wrap up the HNU HawkCast right after the break. Thanks for joining us for episode 4 of the HNU HawkCast. Hawk Nation, study hard, pass all your finals, because we want you to join us as we host our last home doubleheader for the year 2018 this Sunday. Women's basketball tips off at 4, men's basketball tips off at 6 against HNU's rival, the Dominican Penguins. It's the Battle of the Birds. We need all of our Hawk supporters flocking to Tobin Gymnasium as we take on the rival Penguins. So thanks for joining us, Hawk Nation. We'll see you next week on the HNU HawkCast.